Welcome! Today we're going to talk about how to play Sidekick Saga. Sidekick Saga is a cooperative legacy drafting game for 1 to 4 players that's going up on Kickstarter March 5th through April 5th, 2019. And today we're going to talk about how to play the game. In our last video we showed how to set up the game, and today we're going to talk about how to play. The rule book that comes with the game talks about how to play the game and goes through a lot of stuff, but most of what you need is on the summary cards. The summary card has 2 sides. There's sort of a overall structure of the game that talks about the acts, and then there's a turn summary. Inside of each act are 6 turns, and the turn summary tells you what you need to do on every turn. So let's take a look real quick at the bad news deck. The bad news deck is set up here for a 2-player game. We have 6 bad news, then the end of evening, or end of morning. Then we have 6 bad news, the end of afternoon, and then 6 bad news, and then the end of night. And this basically controls the major structure of the game. You go until you get to the end of an act, and at the end of the act, a whole bunch of cards come back. All right, and we'll talk about what that means here in a second. But so this really controls how the game flows through the game. Okay. So let's go and take a look at this side of this summary card. It says how to play. So there are 3 acts, the morning, afternoon, night, which we just saw. And yeah, like I saw, there's 6 bad news. So what happens is, inside of each act, after we do a bad news, we have 4 phases. The bad news, the sidekick, the combat, and then the end phase, okay? And once we get to the end of act, we do some stuff which is down here. But the most important thing is probably this side. As you're playing the game, you'll see what happens during every turn. And this is kind of the major flow of the game, okay? There's the bad news phase in which the LIS, which stands for the least interesting character, reads the bad news. Now, who's the LIS? The LIS is the least interesting sidekick. We talked a little about that in the setup video. But who's ever at the bottom of the sidekick of interest card is the most interesting sidekick. And why is that? Because the person at the top is most likely to be in combat, and the person at the bottom is most likely not to be in combat. So to give them something extra to do, the least interesting sidekick reads the bad news for a turn, okay? So they draw and read bad news, then they reveal a villain force. So the least interesting sidekick will reveal the next villain force. They're labeled 1, 2, 3. The next one will be 4. Okay. And then that would be the end of the bad news phase. Now you'll notice here, depending on the number of players, the number of bad news revealed depends on the number of players. In a 1 or 2 player game, there's 1 bad news revealed per turn. In a 4-player game, 2 bad news come out per turn. And in a 3-player game, they alternate 1 bad news, then 2 bad news, 1 bad news, then 2 bad news, okay? This is for balance, to keep it so that there's really are the same number of bad news and the same number of actions for depending on the number of sidekicks. Okay, so the next we move to the sidekick phase. Now this is where the sidekicks do what they do. So now this is a simultaneous action game, which means all sidekicks perform their steps simultaneously. So they all move, they all gather resources, they all decide whether to be in hero or secret identity mode, they all populate the supply lines, the drafting portion, they all execute and play their cards. So let's go through these real quick. Move is, as you might expect, move is just moving your sidekick around the city. Every player, most players except for Mach Q, start the game with 2 movement. So you can go, movement is calculated orthogonally. So Blackbird, being on the uptown, can only move 2. So that means the one place he really couldn't get would be downtown or potentially the Hero HQ if it were there. Okay. The next phase is gather resources, and gather resources is very simple. After you move, you simply draw a card at the location you're at. Okay, and that goes into your deck. The third phase is decide whether you're going to be superhero or in secret identity. So you choose one of your 2 sides of your card. Are you going to be in secret hero mode, secret identity mode, or hero mode? And then you flip your card over to show that. Just populate supply lines. What that means is you decide, hey, you know what? I know Amethyst Arrow needs a little bit extra, so maybe I'll pass her a card. Let's say in this case, the Blackbird Bolt. She needs a little extra for attack, so I'll pass that to her. And she might be noticing, hey, you know what? I'm going to pass some cards to him. Now, in a typically drafting, you pass all your cards and keep one. This is more of a sharing game where you can pass as many as you want in the direction of supply lines. In this case, the direction of the supply lines is counterclockwise, but it doesn't make too much difference in a 2-player game. It makes a lot more difference in a 3 or 4-player game. Okay? And then finally, the execute phase, you play as many cards as you want. In this case, we're getting ready for combat, so we might place some stuff in front of us. And that's basically how that flows. Okay? Another thing that's interesting is that in the execute phase, if you are in secret identity, you're not allowed to attack in the combat phase. But you can get to draw an extra lead card if you are in secret hero mode, secret identity mode. Okay, if you're in hero mode, you can do exactly one of the following. You can play as many cards as you want. You can move your sidekick to the top of the soy chart. So, for example, if you wanted to create a distraction and do nothing else, Amethystero could decide, you know what, I'm not going to play any cards. I'm going to move my guy all the way to the top of the soy chart. That's in case you really need the bad guys to pay attention to Amethystero because, let's say, Blackbird is really hurt. And finally, if you want to, you can discard a card to rotate a gang 9 degrees. We have no gangs currently playing, so that wouldn't matter here. Finally, we get to the combat phase. So in combat works by doing either hack attacks first. So if we decided we wanted to do some hack attacking, we do those first. Then the bad guys get to attack us, and then we get to attack them. And so you'd resolve that in any order you want. This is player selected turn order. And finally, you get to the end phase. So that's kind of an idea of how everything is going to go. Let's go and play the game through a couple of turns just to kind of show you how everything works. So again, everything that you want is on the player summary cards. Okay, so let's go and start the game, how to play. So we are in the first act. We are in the morning. So what we're going to do now in the morning is we go through the 4 basic phases. So who's the least interesting sidekick? She's the one who reads the bad news, and in this case, it's Amethystero. So the least interesting sidekick draws and reads a bad news card. So that's Amethystero draws and reads. Okay. So this bad news is a thug. So thugs come out and they kind of take over a location. In this case, you'll see Bob. His home is the warehouse district. So Bob moves to the warehouse district and kind of muddles up the warehouse district. The reason that is important is because now when we go to the warehouse, we can't actually draw cards because Bob is physically blocking that location. So we need to basically defeat Bob before we can draw cards at that location. Okay, so that's the bad news phase. Now the next thing that the least interesting sidekick does during the bad news phase is reveals the next villain force, marking the affected locations with the peril numbers. So the next villain force, here's at 4, is the Ice Death Gang. So this says, let's go ahead and read what this card says. Move a controlled gang to the active soy if there is no gang there, otherwise move it to the streets. Okay, and we're going to keep this card in the villain forces structure to show that this is protecting the card above it. Okay? So we take a controlled gang out of the gang's hideout and move it to the soy. In this case, the soy is Blackbird, right? See right here, the soy is Blackbird. So that moves to the uptown, okay? And what you'll notice here is that the gangs also, both gangs and thugs take over locations. The rest of the minions in the power structure don't, and they can attack from their power structure, but both gangs and thugs completely take over a location, okay? So that, we want to put the number 4 there to show that that location is in peril and corresponds to number 4 in the villain forces. Okay? So that is the end of the bad news phase. Okay? So now we go to the sidekick phase, and all their sidekicks perform their actions simultaneously. Okay, so in this case, one of the things we want to do is try to get some police forces, because at least we know Amethystero can do stuff to gangs if she has some police forces. So you'll notice one of Amethystero's powers is she's a gang expert. Let's go and read what that means real quick. Okay, so as a gang expert, when you discard a police force to dispatch a gang, you need 1 less. You can do this only once per turn. Alternatively, if you're on a location with a gang and someone else dispatches police forces, they need 1 less. So what we might try to do is get some police forces to Amethystero. So I think during the movement phase, So that's the first thing that they both do. Blackbird is going to move to the police station, and Amethyst Arrow is going to move to the middle of the city, because Amethyst Arrow's other ability is that she can shoot things that are one space away, because her long shot card, if you take a look at her power here, long shot gives her +1 to range on attacks. So if she's in the middle of the city in the Rincon Labs, she can hit just about any villain. So we're going to do that. Okay, next thing we do, so they both moved. Now we need to both gather resources. So Blackbird will gather a resource. He grabs a police force. Okay, and you'll look here and you can see you can discard 1 police force to rotate a gang, or you can discard 2 to discard a gang, an uncontrolled gang, or you can discard 3 police forces to discard a controlled gang. So currently I have 1 controlled gang on the board. So we're going to need to get another gang perhaps next turn. So this goes to Blackbird. It goes in his cards right here. And Amethyst Arrow draws a card, and she gets a Turing Translator. Requires a scientist. While in play, the sidekick gets +1 to hack, attack, and defense, okay? So she does not currently have a scientist, but you'll notice one of Blackbird's abilities is he actually is a scientist. This is one of his powers. Okay. If you look at his ability, you are a scientist and can operate complex technology. So with the scientist ability, this will give Blackbird the ability to do some more hack attacking. So this might be something good to give to him. Okay, so doing the populate supply lines. Okay, so we've moved, we've gathered resources. Now each hero is going to decide hero or secret identity. Well, in this case, Blackbird, you'll notice, is nowhere near any villains, so he might as well go to secret identity mode so that he can gather some leads. And Amethyst Arrow is going to stay in hero mode so that she can go fight something. All right, so we've decided. And then finally, we're going to populate the supply lines. Okay, so and during the populate supply lines, you can pass as many cards as you like in the directions of the supply lines. In this case, it doesn't matter, like I said, because we have just 2 players. So we want to give the police forces to Amethyst Arrow so that she can go after some of the gangs later. We're going to give the Turing Translator to Rich Stack since he's a scientist. And then since we know that Amethyst Arrow is going to be in combat, we'll give her the Blackbird Bolt. And then we're going to give Amethyst Arrow is going to give Rich Stack a lead, because now we have 3 leads, and we're almost close enough to get something from here in the heroic items. Okay, so that is the populate supply lines. Normally you have to be much more careful with the direction, but in a 2-player game you can just kind of pass cards willy-nilly. Until, unfortunately, the City Terror, if it gets up to 6 to 10, you can only pass 2 cards. You notice we were pretty willy-nilly about what we passed. But you have to be much more careful when the City Terror makes it to 6 or 10. Okay? All right, so now we are in the execute mode. So one of them is in secret identity. So Rich Stack is in secret identity mode. Blackbird, don't tell anyone, shh. So he gets a lead, and now he has 4 leads, and he's on the police station. Well, it turns out, if you take a look at the force field controller, one sidekick must discard 4 leads at either the police station or the suburbs to find and claim the force field controller. Keep the hero HQ cards under this card until the force field is deactivated. Flip this card down. So on his turn, he's going to go ahead and deactivate the force field with the force field controller. So what that means is that Blackbird is going to take his 4 lead cards, because it costs 4 leads to find the force field controller. He's going to discard them, and we're going to make the discard over here by the lead cards, okay? And he's going to discard them at the police station to get the force field controller. So he flips it, and now he takes the force so we can read what this card does. Take the hero HQ location cards and place them below the suburbs. Players may now move to the hero HQ. So fantastic. Put these here, and now we found one of the heroic items. Fantastic. That was a great turn. Okay, and then so what is, and that's all he wants to do this turn. He's also going to put the Turing Translator in, I take that back, he's also going to put the Turing Translator into play so that now he can do better at attack attacks if he wants to do that. Okay, so now Amethyst Arrow is going to take and put her Blackbird Bolt into combat in front of her, and also her Ring of Clarity. If she uses the Ring of Clarity, she actually gets another +1 in range, although she might give this to Blackbird, so he gets another +1. And she also has the Amethyst Arrow. And she gets +3 on 1 attack with this arrow. So that's really great. So she's going to put all those in front of her so she can do combat. All right. We are done. If you look at this now, we are done with the execute phase. We are in combat. Woohoo! So, combat. First, the sidekicks may hack attack. Right now, the sidekicks, nobody can hack attack. Well, Amethyst Arrow could, but she wants to go for a real attack. So we're going to let the bad guys attack first. So the bad guys attack in city order from top to bottom, left to right. So what that means is we actually start at the top of the city and work our way down and see who they attack. So let's start up here. There's 2 bad guys here, and we get to choose if there's 2 of them on the same location. So in this case, there's a thug. He has a range of 0. If you take a look at Bob, most of the thugs have a range of 0, so it means they can only attack things on their location. So since nobody's there, Bob doesn't attack anybody. Okay, 2 corresponds to Rich Lieutenant Jerry here. So let's take a look at Lieutenant Jerry. Lieutenant Jerry, you'll notice, oops, sorry about that. He has a range of 1, but if Lieutenant Ben is active, which he is, he has a +2 range. So right now, Lieutenant Jerry has +2 range. So who can he hit? Well, you might say he couldn't hit anybody normally, because with a range of 1, he can only hit for the uptown, the streets, or the warehouse. But because Lieutenant Ben is in play, he's got range 2, and so he can hit Amethyst Arrow. Now his attack strategy in this case is opportunistic, which means he'll hit the closest guy that's closest sidekick in range. So if we have the case where they were both here at the same location, he would actually attack, of course, Blackbird because he's the sidekick of interest. But because Amethyst Arrow is the only one that's in range, he will attack her. So his attack, so the way attacks work is you basically take the attack and you count it against the defense of the person being targeted. So in this case, we have his attack is 2, her defense is 1, so Amethyst Arrow takes 1 damage. Okay. So we'll use the POW tokens to denote that. So we'll put a hit point up here. And again, we're not putting it on the card because we're going to be flipping this card back and forth. All right, so that's the first combat. 1 is Lieutenant Ben, and he's basically very similar. He's going to attack the closest thing to him that's in range. That happens also to be Amethyst Arrow. And very similarly, he has 2 attack, and Amethyst Arrow has 1 defense, so she takes another point of damage. Okay, coming down, there's nobody there, so that's left to right, top to bottom, left to right. So now location 4 is a gang. Gangs have no range, so they can only attack things on their location. Okay, so 3 is the elves. Okay, oh, by the way, we forgot to do this. Add +1 to the City Terror at the end of the bad news. We should have done that. So the City Terror is already up at 2. Forgot to do that during our City Terror phase. Let's see. Let's take a look at the elves. The elves have a range of 1. And Amethyst Arrows went 1 away, and they have an attack of 2. So they will attack and do 1 damage to Amethyst Arrow. She's kind of taking some damage here, isn't she? Okay, and that is the end. There's nobody else. There's no peril markers anywhere else. So we've gone through the city, and all the bad guys have attacked. So now, it's the hero's turn, okay? So, because Rich Stack was in secret identity mode, nothing happens. He can't attack. So the only one who can attack is Amethyst Arrow. So let's go ahead and see what she's going to do. She can attack pretty much anything because she has range 2. She could hit him, or him. So who's she going to attack? Well, she does have the Amethyst Arrow, which gives her +3 on attack. And these elves, the elves have defense of 1, but they have 3 hit points. So it's going to take at least 4 to take them out. And they're adding City Terror to it. So maybe she's going to throw her Amethyst Arrow. So that gives her +3, plus her -2. So she has an attack of 5. So she does 4 damage to this, so the elves go away. So she attacks, so this gets discarded to the general sidekick discard. And the elves go to the maximum security present because they were defeated. And because she defeated a villain force, she immediately rockets to the top of the sidekick of interest. And now Amethyst Arrow is the most interesting, or the sidekick of interest in the game. Okay? So, we're done with combat. So now we go to the end phase. first part of the end phase is city terror. Raise the city terror by 1 for each active gang. We have 1 active gang, so the city terror goes up 1. Okay, and then finally regroup. For everything in disarray, we rotate 90 degrees. Nothing is currently in disarray, so we go to the top of the turn. Okay, so we start up again. We're at the start of the bad news phase again. We're going to go through this a little bit faster this time because you've seen everything. But let me show you what happens next. So we draw the bad news. The least interesting person, actually Blackbird is the least interesting now, so he would draw and read the bad news. Okay, so we have here street crime. Destroy the top location card of the street city deck. So we put this bad news here in the discard, and we take the streets and we go ahead and destroy this card, put it back in the box. Hopefully that wasn't a good card. Okay, next we reveal the next villain force. Okay, the frozen gang. Move a controlled gang to the active soy. Okay, so we move another gang. The active soy right now is Amethystero, so a gang comes to Rincon Labs. Oh, this is really bogus. There's a ton of gangs out there, which means if we don't kill them all or take care of them, we're going to have the city terror really moving up quickly. So we have to be really careful about what happens next. Okay, oh, we need to put, actually, sorry, I forgot to do this. We needed to put that over there since we defeated the elves, since Amethystero defeated the elves last turn. Okay? So that is the end of the bad news. We have a whole bunch of stuff revealed. So let's remind ourselves, what do we do now? So first of all, we get to move, gather resources, and decide. So in this case, Blackbird's going to stay where he is because he wants another police force to take out a gang. So he's not going to move. And Amethystero, since she actually wants to draw a card, right now this gang is preventing her from drawing a card because it's on top of the deck. She is going to head to the police station as well. Okay, so they're both here, both Blackbird and Amethystero take police. By the way, at the police station, it's always police forces. This is one location that doesn't have a lot of randomness to it. The police station always has police forces. Okay, so we've done that. We've gathered resources. Now we have to decide secret identity or hero. They both need to fight because we need to take some of these stuff under control. So Rich Stack rotates back to hero mode. Okay, and Amethystero stays in hero mode. Next we go to the populate supply lines. Now we're going to go ahead and give our police forces to her so she can take out one of the gangs. So we're going to do that. She now has 3 police forces. And since he's going to do a hack attack of one of the gangs, and she's going to actually defeat one of the other ones. So he's got the deterring translator. So I think we don't actually need range, but we're going to give this to him for a later turn when he wants an extra +1. So the Ring of Clarity, remember, gives you +1 on range. Okay. So now we are done with the populate supply lines phase. So now we go to execute. We're both in hero form, and we're both going to just play cards, get ready to go. So actually, he'd gotten this. He would have actually played this here. And now Amethystero is going to play 2 police forces. So if you read the card, it actually says discard 3 police forces, discard any controlled gang. But since Amethystero is a gang expert, she needs 1 less. So she discards these 2 cards and go ahead and discards this controlled gang. Now you'll notice this does not actually affect the Sidekick Adventures chart because she was not in combat with this gang. She simply dispatched police forces to it. So the police went and took down this gang. So nobody knew that Amethystero was actually part of taking down this gang. So when you defeat a gang this way, the Sidekick Adventures chart stays constant. Okay? And so I think we're done. Everyone's done playing their cards. And finally we go into combat phase. So we're actually going to show what hacking attack is like this time. So Amethystero is going to do a normal attack, but Blackbird is going to do a hack attack. So the way hack attacks work is you take a look at your card. So your hack attack is over here. He has a hack attack of 1 and a hack defense of 1. Hack attacks are a little bit different. What you do is when you hack attack something and you succeed, you put a bad guy or something into disarray. So let's show you how that works. With the scientist and the Turing translator, his hack attack is actually 2 now. So he's going to hack attack this controlled gang. If you take a look at this controlled gang, you'll see that its hack defense is 0. So 2 minus 0 is 2, which means he puts him in disarray for 2 turns. So he puts them, this is 1, 2. This is how we indicate that the gang is in disarray. And when the gang is in disarray, none of its powers are active. You can draw there, he's not going to cause city terror, and he can't attack you. So the whole idea of hack attacking is that you've sort of screwed him over. You've gone over there and you've kicked him out of his hideout, or you made it so that his building was condemned. You've done something to cause this gang to be out of commission for a little bit. He's still active and has all his hit points, and you can attack him, but he's not active and actively doing stuff to make your life harder, okay? So that was Blackbird's attack. Now the bad guys get to attack. So again, we have to go through and see what the bad guys do. 2, Lieutenant Jerry, even though he has a range of 2, he can't reach anybody because everyone's down at the police station. Lieutenant Ben is the same way. Oh, actually, Lieutenant Ben has a range of 2, so he can reach down to the police station. And who does he attack? Well, Lieutenant Ben, his attack strategy is vengeful. And vengeful means you go from left to right on the soy chart, and if that person is in range, you attack them. Otherwise, you keep going left to right until you find someone you can attack, which is a little different than opportunistic. Opportunistic will always do the ones closest to you, okay? So if we take a look at both Amethyst Arrow and Blackbird are at the same location, so which one is he going to attack? Well, the top of the soy chart, Amethyst Arrow. So he's going to do 1 damage to Amethyst Arrow. I think next turn, Amethyst Arrow is going to strongly consider using her first aid kit. Okay. And then see, 4 is a gang, but they're in disarray. Oh, 5 actually, when she dispatched the gang, this one should have gone away. So this villain force should have gone to the discard when she defeated them, when Amethyst Arrow dispatched police forces. Okay. So that is the end of the hero attack. So now, oh, you know what? Amethyst Arrow can't reach anything. She should have kept her Ring of Clarity, because you'll notice everything, the closest thing is 2 away. Probably what we'd have done if this is your first time playing is retcon that and let her keep the Ring of Clarity, but since she's already passed it along in the phase, since Blackbird has the Ring of Clarity, she can't attack anything. She either should have kept it or stayed in secret identity mode so she could gather lead. Because right now she can't attack anything because nothing is in range. Her range is only 1, and so she can't attack anything. Okay? All right, so let's head on to the end phase. So the end phase for City Terror, you might say, hey, Rich, don't we update the City Terror by 1? No, because this controlled gang is in disarray. So that means because it's not active, we do not update the City Terror. However, you'll notice that the next thing that happens is regroup, and in the regroup phase, everything in disarray rotates back 90 degrees. So next turn, the control gang will be back and active. Okay, and so that is an example of the first 2 turns of the game, and this continues this way. You keep getting bad news, reveal, bad news, reveal, bad news, reveal, bad news, reveal, and then when you get to the end of morning, so we would do 6 more turns like that. But at the end of morning, what would happen is we would take all the stuff. Basically, 2 things happen. We flip the supply lines to the other side. Again, it doesn't make a big deal in a 2-player game, but it does in a 3 or 4. And then we take all the stuff that's in the general Sidekick discard, so it's a whole bunch of cards, and we put them at the bottom of the appropriate deck. So we take the lead cards that we discarded and shuffle them, put them at the bottom of the lead deck. Okay, like so. Whoops. And then we take the 2 police station cards, put those at the bottom of the police station. Take the uptown cards, put at the bottom of the uptown, and then finally the downtown. The idea of the end of an act is the sidekicks take a break and things can kind of come back. So the police station, all the shifts have come back in, so there's a new shift on, so that's why you get new police forces. And that's also why you run out of them, because each location gets kind of exhausted through the game. And then you start, after you've done sort of the end of your morning, you're ready to start again and do the next bad news. And so that's the basic idea of the game. You kind of keep flowing like that until you get to the main villain. And in issue number 1, you have to defeat the main villain to win the game. There's many ways to lose. If the City Terror makes it all the way down to 16 here, you lose. If both Blackbird and Amethyst Arrow reduce to 0 hit points, the sidekicks lose. If just one person survives, then you win, because somebody might have taken it for the team to win. And finally, if you get to the end if you make it all the way to the end of night, and once you're at the end of night and you've gotten to this, you lose. So you have one last chance, and the bad news is revealed. That's your last chance to defeat the bad guy. So 3 ways to lose: City Terror, end of night, or both characters die. Only one way to win, at least in this case: defeat the main villain. So that's basically how you play Sidekick Saga. Thank you very much for your time. Please enjoy and look for us on Kickstarter. Bye-bye.